Hello, I'm Randy Barber, and I'd like to welcome you to Let's Talk Education. This is a chance, as always, for you to directly connect with the BVSD leadership team on important topics in our schools. Today, we're going to discuss the district's efforts to address cultural responsive discipline in our schools. And in a few moments, we'll be speaking to a great panel regarding their efforts in this area. But first, I want to set the stage a little bit with our superintendent. Hi, Dr. Rob Anderson. How are you doing today? Oh, it looks like you are muted.
Sorry about that, Randy. I'm sure that's not the first time anybody's ever made that mistake. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a little bit since we've been on, so I think we're a little bit out of practice here, but I appreciate you joining, especially on a busy day. We had the governor in town and a whole bunch of things going on, so we really appreciate your time.
Well, I wouldn't miss it. This is a really important topic to our district, to our Board of Education, and so I'm happy to be here to discuss this a little bit with you and with our community.
So I do want to kind of dive into cultural responsive discipline. It's really one of the cornerstones of our All Together for All Students strategic plan. Tell us a little bit more.
Well, I think that when, as we started our strategic planning in 2018, and we started to dig into the data, it became very apparent to us that there was inequities in the ways that we were administering discipline in our school district, and our students of color were being disciplined at much higher rates than our white students, and that's not right. And so we really started to dig into what do we need to do to be able to fix that and be culturally responsive in the way that we discipline our students, and we work with them to improve their, and to reduce disruptive behaviors, make sure that we keep kids in classes, because we know that certainly their ability to be in class, be focused, feeds into all the work that we want to do around closing, narrowing achievement gaps and opportunity gaps. And so we started this work a long time ago, and I'm excited for our community to hear about a lot of that great work from our team here today.
I know we in education love big terms and acronyms and those kind of things. Cultural responsive discipline is one. We're also going to be talking about disproportionate discipline. Can you kind of give us a little idea of when we talk about those terms, what does that mean?
I'm going to put it in the most simplest of terms. Two students commit the same infraction. One student of color, one student, white student, same infraction, different consequences. It's not right. And that's as clear as I can articulate that to you. And that's why we've made this such a focus for BVSD, is do whatever we need to do to make sure that we're treating kids fairly and that we're not disproportionate, especially when kids are, we're dealing with the same infraction, different kids, different results.
And cultural responsive, that's something that a lens that we're really utilizing in a lot of different places in our strategic plan, right?
No, absolutely. We want to make sure that we're being culturally responsive in everything we do, especially in discipline. And what we're really doing is reacting to the disproportionate discipline and to the feedback that we've heard directly from our families. Randy, as you know, and as I think many in our community know, that I've been very committed to making sure that when we talk about engaging families, we engage all families. We establish our Latino Parent Advisory Council, our Parents of Color Council, and to a person, they tell me the same stories over and over again. And it's that they don't feel these things are fair and it's not right, and their kids are being treated differently. And when we look at the data, it backs up what they've said. Right. And so we are moving forward with purpose and intention as we think about how do we better our practices as a school district to best serve all kids.
And this really, I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, this has been something that has been a focal point for you since the very beginning, the first days of you being in this office. I know you were meeting with families, and this is what we heard. I mean, we heard a few things from our parents of color, and this was one of the large things.
Right. We heard themes. We heard bullying. Right. We heard disproportionate discipline. We heard not unequal supports. And so that's why we've been making these adjustments as a system. Right. This isn't a school issue. This is a systems issue. And I think that we've made great strides that I'm sure you're going to talk about today. We've revised our bullying policy and have made it much easier for parents, especially our parents of color, to report bullying. Right. We've created a consistent discipline matrix to ensure that we're giving similar consequence for infractions, regardless of school, regardless of kid, right? We're working, you're going to talk a lot about some of the additional mental health supports, how we're rethinking, and we've rethought our school resource officer program, and have what I think made vast improvements. We've increased our expertise and bandwidth around restorative practices, right? So I think that we've made really great strides in this area, and we'll continue to need to work on this until we're not getting the feedback from parents that we've been receiving, and that the data comes out and tells a different story.
Yeah, I want to really build on that. What do you hope when we look forward here? I don't know, 5 years from now or less. I don't know, maybe longer. I mean, what do you think that this could look like? What will be the signs that we've done it right?
Well, here's my hope that other communities, and because the problems we're wrestling with are not just unique to Boulder Valley. These are our issues that are happening across our state and across our country. In 3 to 5 years, my hope is that other districts will turn to us on how do you engage your community, listen to your kids, make the tough decisions, put the resources where your priorities are, and create discipline that's not disciplined data that's not disproportionate, right? All families, regardless of the rooms that you go into or who you speak to, all feel supported in the same ways. We can be a model for the country. I think some of the work that we've already taken on is groundbreaking. We're already getting inquiries from other districts on how have we moved so quickly and have gotten so much buy-in on some of the things that we'll talk about tonight. But again, we're just getting started, Randy. We have a lot of work to do.
Superintendent Rob Anderson, thank you so much for joining us tonight and really setting the stage for our conversation. Thank you.
Randy, always a pleasure. Good to see you. It looks like you're warmed up now. You're ready to go.
I'm ready. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great night. I'm going to go and introduce the rest of our panel. Rob Price, Assistant Superintendent of Operational Services, is joining us. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Randy. Good evening.
Good evening. Brendan Sullivan, our Director of Safety, Security, and Emergency Management. Hey, Brendan.
Hi, Randy.
Thanks for joining us. Janelle King, who's brand new to the district. I don't know how many weeks it's been now, just a few, who is our Restorative Practices Coordinator. Hey.
Hey there. Good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. And we've got two of our Directors of Student Support Services joining us tonight. Tammy Lawrence, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks, Randy. Hi, everyone.
Great. I'm doing great. And Elton Davis, last but not least, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Hello, everyone.
Thank you all for joining us. I do want to remind you all that if you have questions, we do throughout the show look to our social media sites that we posted out about the show. And we also go to bit.ly. If you go to this, you can fill in a question, bit.ly, that's bit.ly/let's talk BVSD, and you can leave us a question and I'll be looking for those throughout the show. Rob Price, I'm going to just start with you and ask you the question of, this really has, as Rob was alluding to, been a comprehensive effort to address disproportionate discipline, including, updating board policies, developing additional professional development and learning, and so much more. Kind of tell us a little bit about everything that's gone into this.
No, Randy, this work started when Dr. Anderson rolled out the strategic plan. We have two themes. Really started with theme four, and then initiative 6A. And what we're attempting to do is to create that inclusive environment for all of our students. We've always said all together for all students. I think Dr. Anderson laid the groundwork tonight and gave us an excellent platform to build upon that. And that has been his mission since then. But this has started with updating board policy. He talked about updating our bullying policies, updating our discipline policies. Kathleen Sullivan has been leading a lot of that work. That work has been presented to the Board of Education. And then we had Board Resolution 20-33. And that, again, created another platform us to build on as we are transitioning away from our school resource officer. So on that, I just talk about it a little bit, but we've provided professional development for bullying to over 500 of our teachers. That happened in August. We developed a curriculum scope and sequence on bullying prevention. And then we started creating systems on how we collect data. And I think that was the important piece. As Dr. Anderson talked about, we created a discipline matrix We aligned our coding with the state and the federal coding, and now we're collecting that transparent, very clear data so that we can look year over year so that we're making sure that we're seeing improvement. So a lot of work being done. We're going to talk about our school safety advocates. We're going to talk about the mental health restorative justice work, but a true team and collaborative process as we've been working through this.
And I think it's so important what you said in regards to the fact that this really started with the strategic plan and the efforts, as Rob said, the things that we're hearing from families, the data that we were looking at that really built the plan. It happened to, there was a nexus with things that were happening on nationally, that sort of at the same time as we were starting to launch into some of this work, got brought things to the forefront, as we think about, all the protests and conversations that were happening about, cultural things throughout the country. But it was really something that started with the strategic plan. I do also just want to ask about the idea that one of the things that we're really working on is our discipline data. You mentioned about getting those codes right, and so I do want to ask a question that was sent in from Ann, who has kids at Centennial and Boulder High School. She asked, what data will be used to track progress and impact of the new discipline procedures? Will that data be shared publicly, and how often will we be reviewing it?
So I'll start with the first question, make sure I understand it. The data we're collecting can be aggregated in a number of ways. We can look at it from a school level, so from a district level. We can look at it from a school by school level. We can look at it based on race, based on disability, based on gender. The idea is that we create a dashboard for every school so that we can be looking at this. Just recently, I believe it was about a month ago, we presented our discipline data to the Board of Education. And what we've seen there is we've still got disproportionate discipline in the district. So we still have a significant amount of work that we need to do. Just because we've got clear and transparent data doesn't mean we fixed the problem. We've got a fair amount of work to do, but we can look at this data in a number of different ways, and we trust it based on the new discipline matrix that we had. Just again, making sure that everybody's getting coding correctly, et cetera. Now we're looking at this data with a team of about 130, 140 people every single month. So we bring all of our district administrators, so from the district level and from the school level. We call this a vortex meeting where we're looking at the discipline and we're reacting accordingly. And then we're providing professional development as needed. So that team's coming together. They've been coming together for, Tammy, maybe you know that, but for quite some time, and looking at that. So that to me is what's going to make the change in the system, right? Everything else that we're talking about, but looking at this data, providing professional development, where do we react? How do we adjust as we're moving forward? And then making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable. So as we're looking at those dashboards, knowing our public has access to that, those are not stood up yet, but the idea is they will be stood up in the near future.
Excellent. And I think I think the things that you're hitting, everything, it is very comprehensive in terms of the fact that as we think about a student, my script's getting in the way of the camera here, but as we think about a student, you can think about bullying, you can think about, threats, you can think about all kinds of different things, but they all really are one unit. And it's important for us to be looking at a student from all these different vantage points. And specifically, I'm thinking about mental health supports, as we were looking at students, trying to figure out how to support them. One of the things that was front and center was how do we support them and ensure that they avoid trouble in the first place, right? Not just focusing on, okay, we've got a kid in the office to get and talk to about something that happened, a fight or whatever, but really trying to address that on the front end. Tammy, one of those efforts is really, and there have been several things that we've hired through this process, but mental health advocates, we added 5 of them who will be helping students directly with mental health and behavior supports, right?
Absolutely. Yes. So we had started out, we had 6 mental health advocates prior to last summer. We were able to hire 5 more. They do tremendous work in our schools. They really are responding to our students' social, emotional, and mental health needs, as well as collaborating with our teachers and administrators on how best to support our students that have these different needs, and whatever those needs might be, they really work in that collaborative place. They also collaborate really closely with our parents too, to know that, many times we're faced with different challenges outside of school, and we want to make sure that when they're coming into school, they have the supports that they need so they can begin the learning process.
Throughout the pandemic, I know that we've had conversations and have actually brought them on the show, these mental health advocates that had been out in our schools. And they really do help more than just students. They're working with parents. They're really giving them resources and tips on how to address these things, right?
Yes, they really, they work closely with the school when the student is identified, but they reach out to the parents to see what supports are needed. And they work to find whatever community supports are available to them. They provide direct supports to parents as well, and really are there to collaborate to support success for their students.
Excellent. I know another important element of this is our RISE program, and that stands for, let's see here if I can find it. Resiliency. I know it's in here somewhere. I'm sorry. Could somebody fill in the blank for me?
Yeah, it's a resilience in schools and educators. And we partner with CU Boulder for this program. And it's really to build capacity for all of our educators across the system, and not just our teachers. We've got front office staff that are participating in RISE trainings. We have many different folks that are interested in this process. So we're hoping to get as many people on board as we can. And really our goal is that all of our schools will be in some form of implementation of RISE next year. And it's really a trauma and culturally responsive program that promotes that resilience in our students, and resilience in overcoming hurdles and obstacles of whatever that means, and for them, and that social emotional support. So it's building that capacity of our system.
And one of my favorite things that they talk about is the fact that really the work starts with the educator. Because and you talk about that analogy on an airplane when the oxygen drops from the ceiling, and they say, ensure that you put your mask on before you help those around you, your children or whatnot. Really, the idea is the same. I mean, if you got and I know that our educators this year, I mean, we just want to give them a shout out. They've been working tremendously hard, being super flexible in regards to the challenges they face, and filling in for other colleagues because of our tightness with substitute teachers, et cetera. They could be frazzled, and so then where's that energy that they need to then support others? That's kind of the focal point of RISE, is to help them.
Yes, and I think our teachers are our superheroes. We look at them because they come in and swoop and take care of all things, but we have to remember that they're humans as well. And so it's really about taking care of them and getting that oxygen to them if they've got things going on. They all have families at home and they've got outside lives, and it's really about providing the resources for them to take care of themselves so then they can help those around them.
Excellent. And really dovetailing with that effort is expanding restorative practices district-wide. As I mentioned, Janelle is our restorative practices coordinator. Tell us a little bit more about this for folks that may not have heard about this kind of programming.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Randy. So I'm sure many people, or some people, have probably heard of restorative justice. So restorative justice is just one of the restorative practices that fit under this umbrella term. Restorative practices really focus on intentionally building and maintaining healthy relationships, social capital, while also having tools in place to address harm and conflict after it's happened.
And sometimes it can take the form of, in a classroom, the way that students are interacting with the teacher and getting checked in. I mean, there's a variety of different ways that we would expect this to kind of flow into our schools.
Yeah, exactly. There's many different processes that fit under this umbrella term. Some include just having, a restorative mindset. That's where it really starts. And then there's restorative conversations, restorative dialogue, restorative questions, restorative circles, and then the most responsive piece or reactive piece, which is restorative justice, which really seeks to, like I said earlier, address harm and talk about what happened and come up with a plan to try to repair that harm as much as possible and prevent something like that from happening again.
It is really cool to see it in action. New Vista has been doing this for, I think, at least 2 decades. And the students are the ones that run it. And one of the things that they say is that it really changes the dynamic. Instead of it being adults that are sort of, coming down and saying, I'm going to punish you for this. And the reaction of, okay, so what does a student get out of that? They might get angry. They may, be excited about the fact that they have time away from school. I mean, people are going to react in different ways. In this case, what you're trying to do is pull folks together and everyone has a voice in that process. The person that is responsible for what happened has an opportunity to hear from others, and then be able to bring something to the table as well.
Yeah, exactly. And the restorative justice program at New Vista, from what I've heard, it sounds awesome because students really feel a sense of autonomy when they can facilitate their own conferences among peers. What a way to empower young people to learn conflict resolution and learn these skills that are invaluable for as they enter adulthood.
Now, this won't be used in every situation that might happen, right?
Yeah, when we talk about restorative justice, it definitely won't be used for every situation. We're really ensuring that as we train district wide, that we're very aware of the discipline matrix, and there are certain situations where restorative justice just won't be able to be used as the sole option. However, if a student does have to be suspended or expelled for whatever reason, then there is still the opportunity to have a restorative justice conference to pull that student back into the classroom and to make sure that the supports are continuing to be in place for them as they re-enter the school.
I know that one of the things that you guys are going to be doing is really, I think it's a scan is what we're kind of calling it, looking out there, seeing what everybody's doing. Because again, some schools are doing SEL work and have these check-ins or whatever inside their classrooms. Some may have never thought of doing this. And so I think that's part of it. And I'd love to just have you between that conversation of kind of what all is going to be done next. Also the idea of, this really does tie into the strategic plan and the idea of building, positive culture in our buildings, welcoming culture. I mean, as I think the superintendent said at the beginning, I mean, our goal is to make sure that every last student feels welcome, supported as they are going through their learning in our buildings.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big part of restorative practices is how do we intentionally create and then build and maintain this culture of welcoming environments, learning environments, supportive environments, where there's social capital and students and teachers alike feel like their voice is being heard and listened to.
What I love about what you just said is that is a perfect segue over to our new school safety advocates, who are going to be yet another group of adults, hopefully trusted adults in these buildings that will be helping support students, hearing what they have to say, advocating for them, also empowering them to advocate for themselves. Brendan, tell us a little bit about this amazing group of, I think it's 10 folks so far, 11 hopefully in the future.
Yep, Randy. Yeah, we've got 10 school safety advocates onboarded 3 weeks ago. They're finishing up training tomorrow. They'll be off on, training on, today was their last day. And then obviously the holiday with tomorrow, they get deployed out to the schools on Friday. So we're going to be doing introductions with the leadership at the school with our SSAs.
And I mean, that training that you guys have been doing is comprehensive. Speaking of comprehensive, 3 weeks, and they have been hitting everything from restorative practices to CPR and everything in between, right?
Yeah, Randy. So we've worked really closely with our professional development staff here in the district and put together around 100 hours of training for them. And it's been 3 really long, intensive weeks for them. Everything from rise, bullying, safe to tell, managing crisis, cultural competency, anti-bias training, Claire Davis, you name it, the whole gamut of what they will need to do as a foundation to best support our schools and our students. So lots of training for them.
I know the community has been involved from the very beginning of this conversation and throughout the hiring, even before that, when we were determining what this position would be. I know that the SSA is one of their favorite things to talk about is the Wordle, which I will say, just generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of Wordles, but this one works because what it does typically is people put in all their feedback and then it makes certain words bigger. And so the actual name of school safety advocates came out of that. Those are the 3 biggest words. And then all the other words that were big in that Wordle really do resonate with the things that we're trying to do here.
Yeah, Randy. So I just pulled it up. We got connector, equity, liaison, community engagement, relation, educator, counselor, wellness. So all of those terms that are used to describe what the position title theme was, is what these people are going to be doing, and just hopefully really connected to our students, creating innovative ways to engage with them. We have 30% of our school safety advocates were existing employees, and we got a lot of feedback from students, and the feedback was that they've been amazing in how they've connected with them, how they've become that trusted adult, how they've become that person that they're willing to come talk to share their story with, or to discuss issues that are impacting their feeling of safety.
And we've been having conversations with them this week as we've started to introduce them to members of the media. One of the things that just amazes me about them is that they have a wide variety of expertise, that they've got a great years of experience. Almost all of them have worked with students in the past, have a great love for working with kids. And everybody that goes into those rooms walks out going, holy cow, these people are amazing. I mean, it's without a doubt every person that I've talked to.
Yeah, no, you're right, Randy. There's been a lot of positivity. There's an enormous amount of energy and excitement in the room with the staff. They're a phenomenal group, and they're really truly care about our kids. They're there for a very specific reason, and that's to support them, to make sure that kids feel safe at school. It's different from what us as adults feel is safety versus what kids feel is safety. And so that's really what their goal is to lead that charge of figuring out what works for them, not what works for adults. But yeah, you're right. We've got a lot of positive feedback from them, from even the interview committee, with how they led with mental health, how they were the prodigy for this position based on what we're looking for as a district. So really, really strong staff that's going to be able to best support our students.
So I know you were mentioning that this Friday they'll get introduced to administrators and teachers in their buildings, and then next week you may see one of these one of these great SSAs as they're out in the buildings. For folks that don't know, I mean, what do you expect that this is going to look like?
Yeah, so obviously they're going to be part of our administration team at the school, right? They're going to have daily interactions with the rest of the admin team to really understand what concerns there are, or what issues that there are in the school that impact the safety or the feeling of safety, and address those issues. Like I said, we're continuing to work on transforming the culture of safety in our schools. They're going to be engaging with our community partners, with Elton and his team, and Janelle, and all the other wraparound services that we have to best support our kids that are in need. They obviously will be able to interface with law enforcement when it's necessary as well. They have a strong emergency management background and emergency preparedness background, because that's very important for school safety as well, right? We have to be prepared for it. We have to have the right teams in place, the right plans in place. We have to make sure that our school ERT teams are well trained and know what the plan is and know how to respond. And so all of those things as well is what they'll be working on.
It's probably just as important to talk about things that they're not, right? For one, and you were just talking about this, they are supporting a whole crew of characters from principals. They're going to be part of the administration team, but they're not the ones that are going to be disciplining students. They're also not intended to be enforcement folks. Obviously we have different folks that are involved in that, both monitors and obviously law enforcement will still be involved, as you said. It's important for folks to kind of know the difference there, and that they've been brought in to take care of an issue that was sort of in between things. This is not a replacement for SROs. This really is solving some other issues in the buildings that we've recognized as we were really defining what students need.
Yeah, you're right, Randy. They're not an enforcement mechanism, and they don't have the authority or permission to act as such. So, and they're not going to have any input on discipline. They're not licensed for that, and that's not the role we want them to take on either. So, there are employees, and I think they understand and will work vigorously to support the needs of our kids. Our vision, our mission, our values, our goals, and that's really important when we have that kind of commitment control to ensure that the right work is being done for our students.
Excellent. Elton, I want to bring you into the conversation here. I feel like a little bit like Matt Damon with Kimmel, where he always is like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we've ran out of time." I definitely don't want to be that kind of situation. I'd love to have you just kind of tell us a little bit about. I mean, you have been part of this whole process as we were talking about the vortex, and you work closely with Janelle. I mean, all these things really fit together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be a part of an amazing team is completely awesome, right? Everybody's working really, really hard and ensuring that we're doing what's best for our students and families. So, um, first things first, but being a part of this process and knowing how important it is as we move forward and the things that we plan to accomplish have also been really great. And in the long run, we'll see a lot of dividends in how families feel and the students are feeling in each school as well. I think there's a lot that's being done, whether it's mental health, our SSAs, as we move with our restorative practices and everything else that goes along with it. So it's been really good, awesome to be a part of the process.
What have I not talked about that you want to make sure that we get across, Elton?
Besides my smile,
Oh, I love your smile, man, and you have a pretty good dance as well.
I can do that. No, I definitely think that we've covered a lot, and just knowing that everything that we're doing, they all work well with one another. There's not one thing that's kind of separate from the other. So everything that we are putting in place is going to be something that's going to be a part of the process that continues just to make things better for all of our students and families.
Excellent. Rob Price, I know that we've gotten to do a little round the world tour here. What is your hope as you think about all these things coming together?
You know, Randy, I look back to where we started and I think to myself, one of the reasons I love this career is to have a purpose, right? To ground yourself. And what Dr. Anderson said in the beginning is that not all of our students feel like they're treated equally. There was never a bigger moment in my life as when we heard from the Youth Equity Council, and it was loud and clear that they don't feel safe. They don't feel like they're treated equally in this district. And I would say at the end of this, when we're, hopefully in a couple of years, we can look back and we're meeting with Youth Equity Council and they say, everything that you did has changed the culture within this district. I would say that is my greatest hope because we've got great people working on this. We've hired great people. We're putting in the systems to fix this and correct it. But if we don't hear back from our kids that we fixed it, then we have failed the system. So that is my biggest goal. That's what's grounded me. That's what my purpose is right now. So thank you, Randy, for just having this discussion tonight.
Absolutely. We've got about 2 minutes left. And so with that time, I'd like to just go quickly around the circle one more time. And in case there's anything that we missed that you want to say, this is your opportunity. I'll start with Janelle.
No, just that I'm really excited to be working alongside and with the schools and this team here. It has been, I was actually reflecting on how long it's been since I started, and it's just barely a month. So barely been here, but already feel like I've hit the ground running and just have really appreciated all the support from every person, particularly Elton. And just excited to see where we can go with all of this around restorative practices and supporting schools and creating equitable schools, equitable discipline as it relates to restorative work as well.
Perfect. I'll go to my favorite buff next, Elton.
Well, that was great. So really looking forward to the positive impacts that we're able to make in the district concerning our students and families. So I'm so looking forward to that, and just knowing that we had the right team in place to ensure those things happen.
Thank you. Brendan.
Yeah, I think it's been said, but again, just a lot of excitement. It's interesting. There was no playbook for what we're trying to accomplish for the school safety advocate position. There was no manual that we could just copy off of. So we got a lot of input from our community, understand what our needs are and our marching orders. And I truly believe that this will make a huge impact and we'll figure it out long term. We do have a lot of very talented people that are leading the charge, and I'm very dedicated to our students and making sure that we're correcting the problems.
Awesome. Any last thoughts, Rob?
Just appreciate the opportunity, Randy. I do want to get this message out because I think it's incredible work, and I do believe Boulder Valley is leading the way in this. So thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. Thank you to our panel, amazingly well-dressed people joining me today. Thank you for their time on this evening. And I just want to thank all the members of our district team that have been working so hard on this. I know that there are some that have been working tirelessly. Some of them have been mentioned in this show, some of them have not. But just want to give a shout out to all of them because it is really a team effort that has gotten us here. And I cannot wait to see where this goes. We'll certainly be giving updates as we go, both on the spot and back on this show as we go along. And I can't wait for that moment. I hope that you all have a great night, and thanks for joining us.